Hello guys, welcome back to Tactical Trafford, and today we want to talk about a very special player that has been linked to Manchester United. And I really hope and I suppose that by this time this video drops, definitely we are getting a here we go for Bryan Mbeumo to Manchester United. So guys, we want to talk about the tactical analysis of Bryan Mbeumo and we want to talk about the new Rafinha of the Premier League. So guys, let's dive into this video and dive into all the tactical analysis of Bryan Mbeumo and how he's going to improve the team of Rúben Amorim in Manchester United. So guys, let's talk about the finishing of Bryan Mbeumo. The finishing or the shot accuracy of Bryan Mbeumo actually takes him to the brackets of the world elite finishers in the world. He's actually very good in finishing. His left-footed strikes are shot with a lot of conviction, a lot of purpose, a lot of real venom. So when it comes to the finishing of Bryan Mbeumo, he's a player that is very grounded. He can score with a lot of variety from penalties. He can also score from free kicks. Bryan Mbeumo can score from the near post, from the back post, from placement, from shell power. But one of the disadvantages of his finishing is that he lacks a little bit of finesse in his finishing. With a player with such short power, with such accuracy in finishing, needs to have a very good finesse when it comes to ball striking. So when it comes to the placement and the finesse of the finishing of Bryan Mbeumo, he actually needs to work on his finishing or his finesse. That is actually going to help his finishing ability to actually be superb, and it's also going to take him even more further to be one of the best finishers or one of the best wingers in the Premier League. So when it comes to the finishing of Bryan Mbeumo, he's a very well-grounded player and he's a player that actually scored pretty Premier League goals last season. So when it comes to the adaptability of Bryan Mbeumo into the Manchester United team, definitely we know that there is nothing to worry about as he's a player that is already suited to the Premier League. So guys, let's talk about the dribbling of Bryan Mbeumo. So when you're talking about the Bryan Mbeumo, he's not really elite when it comes to players like Cheki, Michael Olisa and Bukayo Saka, but that you don't really have to misquote me on that because he's actually a very good dribbler. He averages 3.89 dribbles per 90 with an accuracy of 56%. That actually tells you that he's not a showboater, but he's a player that actually dribbles with intent. Him not being a showboater doesn't mean that he doesn't have skills. He can beat defenders with step overs, with foot rules, with disguising crosses or disguising passes. So when it comes to beating defenders with body feints, with step overs, Bryan Mbeumo is actually an expert in that, and he's actually very good in creating shooting and crossing angles with his dribble. And one of the most important characteristics of the dribbling of Bryan Mbeumo that I really like a lot is that he really wastes chances. Bryan Mbeumo is not a player that wastes chances. He's a player that attacks, that dribbles with an intent, with a purpose. And whenever he wants to dribble a player, he actually creates a shooting angle or a crossing angle, and he can be able to deliver subtle passes. So when it comes to the dribbling of Bryan Mbeumo is actually very grounded. He's a very good dribbler in the sense of that he's not really a showboater like a kind of Yemi Lamar or Ousmane Dembele. But when it comes to one of the best dribbling wingers in the Premier League, definitely Bryan Mbeumo is up there to be one of the best dribblers in the Premier League. So talking about the defending of Bryan Mbeumo is actually a high volume defender. He's a player that actually averages 4.75 defensive action per 90 with a success rate of 69%. That actually tells you that he's a very hard-working wide forwarder. He's a forwarder that actually looks to drop deep to help in deep transitions or defensive moments. He's a player that actually helps in marking, in making a lot of dirty tackles and dirty sliding during games. But when it comes to his 1v1 defending, he's actually very inconsistent and imbalanced, and that could actually hurt him when he's up against technically gifted wingers like a kind of Nico Williams. He's actually going to struggle very, very well. But when it comes to defending in a situation whereby his pace gives him an edge over the opposition player, then Bryan Mbeumo is actually a player that can be able to do that. And he's also a player that cannot be able to double up on opposition player. You know, there are probably situations whereby two players can be able to double up on a particular player. But when it comes to that moment whereby you have to double up on a particular player to try to shut down the opposition transition moment, Bryan Mbeumo is actually a player that would not really fit in that kind of situation. But when it comes to tracking back, trying to help in defensive duties, trying to be very tidy, and try to use his pace to edge over opposition player, definitely Bryan Mbeumo is a player that can be able to do that very efficiently because he's good in disrupting the attacking transitions of the opposition team. So guys, let's talk about the creativity of Bryan Mbeumo. When it comes to the creativity of Bryan Mbeumo, his creativity is assist per 90 minutes is actually half the player is actually compared with. He's not a Ryan Chiki, he's not a kind of Michael Olise, he's not a kind of Bukayo Saka or Bruno Fernandes because he's not that kind of chance creation player. And you have to also take into context the team he's playing for. He's playing for Brentford, and Brentford is basically a team that relies on transition. They are not a team that dominates possession. They are not a team that actually creates a large volume of final third passes. That's one of the reasons basically that the assist per 90 ratio of Bryan Mbeumo is actually very low because he doesn't play in a team that dominates larger possessions of the game, that actually creates a high volume of final third passes. So that makes his assist per minute to be very, very low. But when Bryan Mbeumo is definitely going to play for a team like Manchester United or any other team that actually dominates possession or have a high volume of final third passes, definitely his creativity is going to really come up. And that doesn't really mean that Bryan Mbeumo doesn't have creativity in him. Definitely he has creativity in him as he was able to give 7 assists in the Premier League last season, if I'm not wrong. So that's actually one of the reasons why I'm saying that Bryan Mbeumo actually is good in assisting. He can be able to give assists through corners, through set pieces. He's actually very good in set piece, and most of the times he adds a little bit of unpredictability in his game by using his weak foot to give some kind of through balls or some kind of crosses. So this is one of the reasons why I like Bryan Mbeumo, because he's not really that a player that is actually very stagnated or a player that can be able to use just one foot. He's a player that can be able to create with both of his leg or both of his foot. So that's one of the reasons whereby I like Bryan Mbeumo, because he adds a little bit of variability when it comes to his creativity. But when it comes to the creativity of Bryan Mbeumo overall, he's actually very, very grounded in his creativity. So talking about the crossing of Bryan Mbeumo is actually a player that is very, very good in crossing. Definitely, he averages 3 crosses per game, which puts him on the same table with the likes of Michael Olise and Bukayo Saka. But they actually have more accuracy than him. But that doesn't mean that Bryan Mbeumo is not actually good in crossing. If you look at the eye test when it comes to the crossing of Bryan Mbeumo, you're going to find out that he's a very real asset when it comes to crossing. He's a very deadly crosser, and in a team whereby they have a very wonderful area presence in the box, that player or that striker is definitely going to benefit from all the crosses of Bryan Mbeumo, because he's very good in crossing with both of his feet. He can give any form of crosses, whipped crosses, inverted crosses. He can be able to cross with his weak foot efficiently under pressure, and most of the crosses of Bryan Mbeumo are actually crosses that go to the back post. So in a kind of team like Manchester United, whereby we have Delete and Harry Maguire standing in the back post, definitely Bryan Mbeumo is actually going to whip in a lot of crosses, and they are going to be a very big beneficiary of the crossing of Bryan Mbeumo. So guys, let's talk about the last characteristics of Bryan Mbeumo, and let's go to the profiling board. So when you go over to the profiling board, we want to start how was Bryan Mbeumo, how good was Bryan Mbeumo in a Brentford shirt, or how good is Bryan Mbeumo playing for Brentford. So when you go over to the Brentford team, actually Bryan Mbeumo was actually a wide forwarder. He was the forwarder that held the width. When he holds the width, whenever Brentford are in possession, they are going to play the ball to him. And one of the characteristics I like about Bryan Mbeumo is that he can run for larger distances. So whenever the ball is being played to him after holding the width, he's going to run for larger distances, and then he's going to shoot, or he's going to create crossing angles. And whenever he's actually being double marked, that's where the issues is. Whenever he's double marked, most of the times, the right back of Brentford doesn't really overlap for Bryan Mbeumo all the time, so he tends to do it all by himself. So whenever he's double marked, most of the times he's being stagnated. He's going to resort to giving deadly crosses or subtle passes into the box, and he's not the player that actually thrives in using his crosses or his passes to break a kind of low block team. He's a player that actually excels when he's more closer to the goal than when he's more farther from the goal. So that's actually the summary of how Bryan Mbeumo was playing for the Brentford team. So let's go over to how he's going to play for the Manchester United team under Rúben Amorim. Go over to how Bryan Mbeumo is going to improve the Manchester United team. So when it comes to the Manchester United, remember it spoke about the deficiency of Bryan Mbeumo not being able to break low blocks with his passes or with his crosses. So in that moment, you know that Bryan Mbeumo is going to play in the right end, and Amad Diallo is going to obviously be the right wing back. There's sort of going to be an interchanging between Bryan Mbeumo and Amad Diallo. So Amad Diallo is going to be the one to break the low blocks with his passes, because Amad Diallo is actually very good in breaking low blocks with his passes. So Amad Diallo is going to be the one doing that, while Bryan Mbeumo is actually going to step back a bit. And Bryan Mbeumo is actually going to be a very big asset when it comes to the crossing, when it comes to giving deadly crosses, when it comes to scoring goals, when it comes to chance creation, and particularly when Manchester United are playing big teams whereby Manchester United are going to be focusing more on transition. Bryan Mbeumo is actually going to be very important because he's a very good runner that can run for large distances. So players like Casemiro, like Bruno Fernandes, like Lenny Euro, like Luke Shaw, they are going to Harry Maguire, they are going to spot his in behind runs and trying to give him passes that is going to help Manchester United to be very beneficiary in the transition. So that's that for the Bryan Mbeumo tactical analysis. I'd like you guys to like, to share, and to subscribe to this video. I want you guys to subscribe to this channel. There'll be more where this video is coming from. There'll be more videos, there'll be more talks about all the players that are linked to Manchester United, or all the players that Manchester United has bought in this summer window of 2025. So I'm going to see you guys in my next video. Ciao.